There's something so ironic about Conformity Gate, the idea that we were all under Vecna's curse, that Mike Wheeler was under Vecna's curse, and that we were getting a secret 9th episode of Stranger Things Season 5. See, ultimately this idea was born out of the Duffer Brothers encouraging audiences to pay attention to every last detail throughout the entire run of the series. Yet now that very idea may have been to their own detriment, because as we've all seen over the last week, the Duffer Brothers made a lot of mistakes in the Stranger Things Season 5 finale and in Season 5 as a whole. Mistakes that, were they living by their own ideology they taught fans to adopt, the ideology of paying attention to every last detail, would not have happened. Because so many of these mistakes feel like it's the Duffers not watching their own show, not paying attention to their own show, and not paying respect to what came before the finale of Season 5. Which is why over the last few days they have been met with millions of fans demanding that secret 9th episode, demanding an episode that fills all of the plot holes, addresses all of the inconsistencies, fulfills all of the plot lines that were built up to be important but disregarded in the finale, and answers all of the unanswered questions. Now, this isn't going to be a deep dive video on each and every inconsistency, plot hole, plot contrivance, unanswered question, so on and so forth. As Bane would say,
that comes later.
I'm not sure if the mic picked that up, but the point is I will be diving deep on all of these issues in a separate video, but for now I just wanted to focus on a few of them and focus on the irony of the rules the Duffers put in place for their own show that in the end will haunt them. Because again, had they not set the precedent that this is a show you need to really pay attention to, had they not encouraged audiences to do that over the years, especially leading into Season 5, had they not gone in interviews leading up to Season 5 insisting that many of the questions that never got answered would be answered, they wouldn't find themselves in the predicament they are currently in. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way, because as I have been full-time for the last 8 months, ever since the finale released, I've been doing breakdowns and analyses trying to figure out exactly what went wrong, trying to address every individual issue and decide how those issues could have been properly dealt with had the Duffers not been lazy in their writing. And in response to those videos, largely on TikTok, because that is currently where I am the most active, I have received 10 million views and thousands of comments from disappointed fans who were expecting more, who were addressing all of the plot holes that bothered them that could have improved the season and the finale had they been addressed. To name a few big ones that a lot of people have been talking about, including myself, we have the egregious Demogorgon, Demodog, and Demobat absence plot hole, where in that final confrontation with Vecna and the Mind Flayer, they are nowhere to be found. And the Duffers made that one a whole lot worse by saying Vecna just didn't see the attack coming. He couldn't have seen it coming in a million years. Which is interesting because we literally see Vecna go inside of Eleven's mind and see their entire plan, which means he did in fact see it coming. We also saw him go inside of Hopper's mind, and we can assume he also saw the plan there. Will is also still the spy. That connection to the hive mind has not been severed, so he could theoretically have seen the plan through Will's eyes. And we also know that he is on high alert because he knows that Max has just escaped his mind and woken up in her physical body with somewhat of an idea of what his plan is, what he's up to. Preventing her from escaping and escaping with potentially crucial information to take him down is one of the reasons he sends the Demodogs after her in the hospital, to take out her physical body, thus eliminating the threat from within his mind. And even if the Duffers wanted to ignore all of those contradictions to their answer in that article, you still have the fact that it has been previously established if anything so much as touches a vine from the hive mind, the entire hive mind swarms to that location. If you're stepping on a vine, you're stepping on Vecna. It makes absolutely no sense that that same rule would not apply if you are lighting the Mind Flayer's physical body on fire with a flamethrower. And what is so frustrating about this one, as one example of, again, over 100 examples that I was able to write up after seeing the finale not once but twice in the theater, is how easily this could have been addressed in several different ways. In Season 3, with the Meat Flayer, Mind Flayer physical form that they fight in Starcourt Mall, we see that that physical form was formed by all of the flayed people who essentially blew up and turned into that nasty goo before all coming together to create that body. They could have done the exact same thing with all of the Demogorgons, Demodogs, and Demobats from the Upside Down and from the Abyss forming the Mind Flayer's final physical body. Or if they wanted to get more creative and make things more interesting, let's say they did have some Demogorgons, Demodogs, or Demobats on Vecna and the Mind Flayer's side in the final battle. What if Will used his powers to take over, let's say, half of the Hive Mind to create an army to fight alongside the party against Vecna, the Mind Flayer, and their army of Demogorgons, Demobats, and Demodogs? They already created a sort of MCU-like final confrontation that would have been an endgame-like moment for Stranger Things. It would have made that final battle a lot more interesting to watch. And the presence of demos on the opposing side alone would have created more stakes. Another plot hole I just made a TikTok video about that would have been very easy to address and also would have been very easy to follow along with, which opposes what the Duffer Brothers think about it, would be showing Joyce and Hopper acknowledging that they went to high school with Henry Creel, aka Vecna. In an interview, the Duffer Brothers said, and I am paraphrasing here, but this is an accurate reflection of what they said, that it would be too confusing for audiences to follow along with who had not seen the play if Joyce and Hopper had a conversation about the fact that they went to high school with Henry Creel, which makes it sound like they just think their audience and their fans are stupid. But in any case, they literally had a multi-episode plotline where characters were inside of Vecna's mind, inside of his memories. The way I see it, they could have fixed this issue in a very simple way. They could have had Max, Eleven, and Kali, while inside of Vecna's memories, inside of Vecna's mind, see Henry Creel interacting with young Joyce and young Hopper. Or they could have done this with just Max alone or Max and Holly during the Escape from Camazotz episode. And then later on, Joyce and Hopper could have had that conversation about the fact that they did know Henry Creel and we all would have followed along because it's simple to follow along with. Another one, this one really irked me both times I saw this finale. The fact that we don't see Will get injured or die during the final fight with the Mind Flayer because based on the previous rules established in Season 2 in the final arc where a huge part of the story was removing the particles from Will before closing the gate to prevent him from dying, Will should have been taking a beating during that final fight. When the Demogorgons were lit on fire in Sorcerer Episode 4, Will was in extraordinary levels of pain. He was flailing about and screaming on the ground as the Demogorgons were lit on fire by the soldier with the flamethrower. Meanwhile, in the final fight, we see the Mind Flayer being lit on fire in multiple different ways, but we never see how it affects Will. It's implied it doesn't affect him at all. And yet again, the Duffers have attempted to address this in interviews, but have done a very poor job in doing so. They essentially said that was happening, but it was happening off screen because they wanted to focus on the main heroes, which is also a problematic statement because Will is also one of the main heroes. In fact, prior to the season's release, the Duffers said he was the main character of Season 5, and arguably the main character of the entire show. But that aside, why couldn't you have had Will get injured on screen and potentially die, only to be resurrected later by Eleven, who we've seen do that with Max in Season 4? That's a fake out death that would actually feel earned and interesting, unlike Steve's fake out death, which was not only predictable but didn't make sense because there was nobody nearby when he fell off that tower to catch him. But with Will's connection to the hive mind, that's one interesting way you could have solved that plot hole. You could have addressed that issue. And there are other ways you could have addressed it too. This is just me listing off some quick, easy options. On my TikTok, I've already come up with additional options, as have thousands and thousands of other fans. You have the issue of the party facing no consequences for their actions in the finale from the military. Dr. K literally sees Nancy walk him down Wheeler, take out several soldiers, and Nancy doesn't face any punishment for that. Hopper takes out dozens and dozens of soldiers, and not only does he not face punishment, but he's also allowed to resume his position as chief of police in Hawkins, which especially doesn't make sense considering everybody thought he was dead. Not sure how they're going to explain that one to the citizens of Hawkins and to the rest of the officers who used to work under him. Obviously, that's a substantial plot contrivance, but it could have been easily addressed in one simple way. Let's say with Nancy, as far as we know, the main person who saw what she did was Dr. K. Take out Dr. K, easy, there's no more witnesses. Again, it's such a simple fix, and I just struggle to understand how they didn't come up with these ideas because they are so easy and simple. They are very elementary. I'm not really doing a lot of work here to come up with these ideas. I'm sure that writers and showrunners like the Duffer Brothers, who are being paid millions and millions of dollars and have 3 years to come up with this story, could have come up with something more complex. Again, something more aligned with their ideology of every detail mattering. Eleven's fate, that's another big one where no matter which way you slice it, no matter which ending you think actually happened, both endings have a ton of plot holes. In order to believe that she survived, you have to believe that Kali survived bleeding out for the entire duration of not only the final battle, but of the party descending from the abyss and returning to the right side up. You have to believe that she can extend the reach of her powers further than she's ever been able to before. Again, while injured. You have to believe that while she was bleeding out, her and 11 actually had enough time while Hopper was briefly out of the room to concoct this plan. You have to believe that 11 was somehow able to get out of that truck quicker than the Flash, where I know Kali would eventually then make her invisible. But then you'd also have to believe that she made it far enough away from the kryptonite in order to use her powers to bring Mike into the void and have that final goodbye with him. You'd have to believe that neither Dr. K or her troops would walk up to 11's body and realize that it is an illusion, in which case they would have resumed viciously hunting her down till the end of time. And yes, I know I've heard the argument that Dr. K would not have walked up there because it was a dangerous situation. I disagree. She's been obsessed with finding 11 for a very long time. I find it hard to believe that in the 3 minutes where 11 and Mike were talking in the void, that neither Dr. K or her troops would have gone up there. You have to believe all of that and more just for 11 to potentially have survived the finale. And some of the same rules apply. If she didn't survive, you again have to believe that neither Dr. K or her troops went up to 11's body to capture her during those 3 minutes. You have to believe that for some reason, for the first time in the entire show, 11's nose does not bleed when she speaks to Mike in the void, unless of course Mike Wheeler is just schizophrenic. And yet again, you have to believe that she was able to exit that truck quicker than the Flash, to evade the troops from even seeing her, to make it back into the Upside Down to have that final moment. It's just plot holes on plot holes on plot holes on contrivances on contrivances on contrivances. They could have still written an ambiguous ending for 11's character without having such an insane number of plot holes and contrivances surrounding the situation. But instead, they opted not to do that. And so now you're stuck with an ambiguous situation that either way you slice it is actually impossible. Like I said, this is not a video where I'm going to deep dive on all of the issues because again, there are many, many more and I have a long list and I'm going to do a very long video about that full list. And I've also been covering a lot of that list on an individual video by video basis on TikTok. But the point is, there were options around these issues that millions of fans are pointing out, that millions of fans have issues with, and that have ruined the show, or at least the finale and the final season of the show, for millions of fans. Me being one of those fans. And again, to bring this video somewhat full circle, because again, this is another yap session type of video where I'm not going off of a script, I'm just going off of the dome. I find it very ironic that when it comes to Conformity Gate and when it comes to the criticisms being levied at the Duffer Brothers by the fans, the Duffers are now facing the consequences of the rules they themselves put in place for their show. The rule that every last detail in the show matters and is intentional. The rule that audiences, in order to truly engage with the show, need to pay attention to every last little detail. I'm not saying the finale, Volume 2, Season 5, or the show as a whole would be better if these rules were not put in place by the Duffers. These issues would still very much be issues, but audience expectations would be different, and the Duffers may not be in the situation they're in today as a result. Again, multiple different deep dive videos will be coming soon on this channel, and again, I have been addressing these issues one by one on a video by video basis on my TikTok at Matt's Multiverse. But let me know what you thought about the finale of Stranger Things Season 5 as a whole. Are you as upset as me, or were you able to overlook all of these glaring issues? And I don't mean that as an insult if you are one of those people who was still able to enjoy it. Some people can do that. Some people could ignore these types of issues and still enjoy the media that they are watching. I struggle to be one of those people. Maybe it's because I literally analyze and theorize about these things for a living, but it is near impossible for me to overlook these issues. This is YouTube, so do the like, subscribe, and comment thing. Share this with your Stranger Things friends. It helps out a lot, and I will see you guys in the next video.